Hi, I'm Daniela and this is Jocelyn. Thanks for coming to our channel.
Today we're going to talk more about how we talk to our 12-year-old daughter about our AI journey through the conversation about the seed guy. Throughout this video, we're going to talk about our thoughts behind having this uncomfortable conversation, what we wanted to gain from it, our daughter's reaction to the conversation, and how it ultimately changed us as a family unit moving forward.
Joss and I have had many conversations about having a new baby, and we've talked to Isabella about it probably since the beginning of our relationship. The good thing about it is that Bella has always been super excited about the idea of having a new baby in the family, even a little bit curious about how a new baby would come into our lives.
Yes, we've always been a pretty open and honest family, so I knew going into this we wanted to keep that same integrity. Growing up myself, I would always hear when I'd ask questions that adults didn't really know how to answer. You'll learn when you're older. Well, as a child who also heard, you're so mature for your age, you're so mature for your age, I didn't want to wait till I was older for all of these answers. So I knew, even though I had Isabella at a young age, one of the things that really stood out to me was I'm never going to tell her, oh, you'll just learn when you're older. I knew that it might be hard and uncomfortable, but I wanted to find a way, an age-appropriate way, to always keep her in the loop and know that when she comes and asks me a question that I'm going to give her an answer. And it has pretty much worked. I mean, we've definitely had some uncomfortable conversations, but it was definitely better than just kind of pushing her off like, oh, you'll learn when you're older, because I know with the personality that she has, that answer's not going to be good enough for her either, and she'll just go ask someone else more than likely.
In the beginning phases of our trying to conceive journey, we were just a little bit quieter about the situation. It's not that we were hiding anything, we just weren't forthcoming about where we were in our journey, what the process entailed, and that we had begun the process. So up until that point, we had just been like talking about having a baby, but not like, hey, we're doing it right this minute. If you think about it, there's really a lot that goes into us trying to plan conception. We have to think about so much in preparation for insemination day.
And so many schedules. We have our own personal schedules, we have our donor's work schedule, his personal schedules, our daughter's schedules. So there was a lot of maneuvering that had to be done.
Yeah, we have a lot to think about, like where is Isabella going to be on the day we ovulate? What are we going to do? How are we going to get a sitter? Is she going to be with her dad? And normally if we had something to do that was personal, we would just plan to do it on a day or a weekend that Isabella's with her dad. But unfortunately,
ovulation doesn't work that way.
No. So we can't plan exactly when I'm going to ovulate. And my cycle's been out of control and changing ovulation dates like crazy. So of course we can make it like, all right, we know we're going to ovulate this week, but
we definitely had to have a conversation of, is this going to be worth it? Is it worth it to put her through that? And we had to weigh the pros and cons of not telling her versus telling her.
Comment below and let us know about some uncomfortable conversations that you were grateful you had.
We also wanted to be extremely considerate of Isabella's feelings, especially because the anticipation of waiting is hard for us as grown adults. So we knew that we didn't want to get our hopes up too much and too excited too soon. We definitely wanted to make sure it was very clear that this is a long process. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's a journey. That's the biggest thing, where, you know, for most of us, at least for you and I, our parents just kind of told us, hey, we're having a baby, and then that we waited 9 months. But to be like, well, we're trying to have a baby, it's that added anticipation that we also have to take into consideration.
Yeah, trying to conceive can be a very rewarding journey, but it can also be super emotional for everyone involved, because you're like, am I pregnant? Am I not pregnant? Did this test come up positive? Did I lose the baby? And that's a lot to include a child in. And there's just a lot that goes into a family like ours trying to conceive through ICI. And we want to make sure that we're staying on top of it all. Eventually, considering all of these factors, things became a little bit difficult to keep quiet about, as you can imagine. It was obvious to her that something was going on and that we were planning things, and I would rather just be upfront and honest with her than her think we're trying to hide something from her.
And then it got to a point where, okay, we're deciding we want to share all of this with the world through YouTube, so how can we not share this with our #1 supporter? And that's when we ultimately made the decision to sit down and think about how we were gonna let her know what's going on.
Once we decided that we were ready to talk to Isabella, we started having all of these thoughts about what her possible reaction could be.
Right? Is she going to be super grossed out and disgusted? Is she going to be like, oh my God, I want to hear nothing about this? Is she going to be receptive to this information? Is she going to want to be involved? Is she going to feel like we left her out by not telling her about starting this channel and going to appointments? So there's a lot to consider when we thought, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
So where do these two moms born in the 90s go to figure out what to do? We stick with what we know. Duh.
There's a really great scene from the movie with Jennifer Aniston and Jason Bateman where Jennifer Aniston's character is getting artificially inseminated. So once she has a child, he wants to know about his life and where he's come from, and she creates this conversation about the seed guy. And I really loved that idea. I think that was so sweet and personal and thoughtful. And I instantly knew that that was the way that we could incorporate this AI journey, because that's something that I wanted to kind of carry on throughout our family unit as well.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's not only Isabella that's going to have questions about where this baby came from, but also this future baby might have questions about where they came from.
Exactly. When she was younger, at like 2 and 3, and she's kind of like, where do babies come from? We would have the conversation. You take a part of the mommy and a part of the daddy, and that's what makes a baby. And that was a good enough answer for a while. And then as she got older, she starts to ask, well, what part of the mom and what part of the dad? And then we say, you know, the part of the dad is he has a seed and the mom has an egg, and so you have to make sure that the seed meets the egg, and once that happens, that's how the baby starts to be created. And that was good enough for a while. So as we went on, we just grew that story for her when she was ready to hear more information about it.
Yeah. Personally, I keep thinking, like, we all imagine the way scenarios are going to go in our head, or imagine the way things work. And I was like, what is she going to imagine about what's going on? So I just want to make sure that we like delivered this in the perfect way. Then considering what the perfect way was kind of even put more pressure on the situation. So that's why I just decided like to free ball it and go natural.
Let's hear how this conversation went from Bella herself.
Well, one day when Daniela came home from her doctor's appointment, I was like, what was that about? And she was like, well, basically it's time to have a baby and I'm ready. And that is how we had a conversation about that. It was awkward at first, but after we knew it was like kind of official and actually happening, it wasn't as awkward. At first I was just like, well, this is exciting, and then I was like, well, I shouldn't get my hopes up. I was like, this is definitely exciting and a step forward. I'll soon have a baby sibling, and yeah.
Now let's hear what Daniela has to say.
So one day, Bella came home from school, and she had known that I went to a doctor's appointment that day, and I was just like sitting on the couch, and she comes home and she said, how was your doctor's appointment today? And at this point I was like, oh, all right, this might be an opportunity to just tell her. Even though Jocelyn was at work, I just felt like this was like a natural flow of the conversation. I had gone to my gynecologist just for a regular checkup, so I decided to say like, oh, I went to my gynecologist today. And she was like, oh, wow. And I said, my gynecologist said I'm about to ovulate. And she was like, oh, is that a good thing? And I was just like, well, yeah, kind of. Do you know what ovulation is? And then we kind of went back to the eggs and the swimmers. And I just told her that ovulation is when a woman's egg comes down so that it can meet the swimmers. And she thought that was very interesting, and then was like, so does that mean you guys are going to have a baby? And I said, yeah, it means that we're going to start trying to have a baby. I let her know that mommy and I decided who was going to be our seed guy, and that this person was going to donate their swimmers or their sperm to us to help us make a baby.
I think that works best with Isabella too, because she can sense the authenticity in what you're delivering to her. It doesn't feel like fluffy or scripted for her, because she can sense when it's like, okay, they're just telling me what I want to hear, or they're just telling me this or that. Yeah. But when you get real with her, I think she kind of gets more alert and more excited and more interested in what's going on.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
So did she have questions about how he was going to donate it to us or how that worked? No, she kind of was just like, okay with that?
Yeah. Isabella's not one to ask many questions, especially when I explain something to her. I'm like, do you have any questions? And she's like, no. I'm like, do you want to talk about anything? And she's like, no.
I'm so curious.
But she did not. But I think I made it pretty clear that it wasn't going to be the old-fashioned way.
Well, that's good.
I could see that she started putting pieces in her head together from things that we have been saying or alluding to in the past. You know, she was like, I had a feeling something was going on when you mentioned going to a doctor in the city, and things along those lines. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. You were putting all this together for a while, weren't you? During the conversation, towards the end of it, I can tell how much it meant to Isabella that I told her what was going on. She lit up and was super excited. It really meant a lot to her to be included on this process. Although she didn't say it, her body language definitely showed it.
One thing to remember while in this process is to try not to get your hopes up, because it doesn't always happen on the first try.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But it's okay to be excited too.
But it is also okay to be excited.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and it's about going through all the steps that we need. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that we can just magically make happen. We have to be really in tune with our bodies, and we have to be as healthy as we can be and follow all the steps. And we've been doing a lot of research, and I think that made her feel more reassured, and also like, okay, wow, this actually is happening. It's not just like, you're gonna have a baby brother or sister one day. Now it's time, which I think made her really excited as well.
I know. She's been super adorable. She's always like, Daniela, are you supposed to be eating that? And she checks in on me all the time. Like, how are you feeling today? This is her. How are you feeling today? All the time. It makes me feel so good and cared for. And I love that she's there throughout this. Because when you're excited and you're sitting there feeling like, maybe I'm pregnant or maybe I'm not, you know, it's nice to not have to like keep those feelings all bottled up in your house.
For sure. And she gets to join in on the excitement too. And she gets to see the real process, that it is, you do
not
have to
see the real process.
No, you're right. Let me just say this. I like that she gets to see our emotions, our full range of emotions, because I want her to know that it's okay to feel sad when it doesn't work, and it's okay to feel frustrated when you really want this to work and it hasn't yet. And that's okay, and we can all talk about it, and we can all lament over it and laugh about it and cry about it and move on from it together. Being moms of a preteen means having a lot of feelings and not talking about our feelings with Isabella. She is at the age now where she's starting to close herself off. She kind of wants to be a little bit more independent and talk with her friends, and that's totally awesome and frightening all at the same time. But we knew that sharing and opening up was always something that was super important, and it's really opened that line of communication with her, I think.
Yeah, I would say for sure. When we all know what it's like to be a preteen and how you don't want to talk to your parents, and that's so uncool. But I feel like she waxes and wanes with that, and it was definitely a period of where she was like closing off to us and being more independent and hiding away in her cell phone or her room. But after sharing this with her, I feel like now she's like excited to talk to us. Not only is she always asking us questions about what's going on, but she's sharing more about her life and her interests.
Now I'm trying as best as I can not to get my hopes up, trying not to tell everybody in my whole school that I might be having another sibling.
Ultimately, I think we made a really great decision in sharing this with her.
We were so happy and so relieved that the conversation created such a good environment for us. But just because we went about having a conversation about our artificial insemination story with our daughter the way that we did doesn't mean that it's right for everyone. Every family has its own way of working together, and there will be many different journeys out there, and you just need to find the one that works for you, and we're here to help if you need it. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about our parenting style, I really wanted to share with you the book that I go to for all of my parenting needs: How to Talk to Kids So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. Once Isabella started closing off to us, I really found it important to figure out a way to talk to her, and it's been a lifesaver. As you can see, I have lots of notes here, but it's really helped create an open, communicative space for everyone in our family. And it's actually reassured me that sometimes just kind of taking a breath and a silence and a pause to let them think about it and come up with a response on their own goes a long way. Sometimes just letting them know that you hear them. You don't need to respond and you don't need to give advice all the time, which is a big thing for me because I'm like, I'm a parent. I'm supposed to be creating all these teachable moments. I'm an educator. I'm supposed to be making sure she's getting the most out of every experience. And I think this book has really helped me listen.
Ever since we have changed our parenting style to model the behaviors in this book, I have noticed a huge change in all of our communication between you and I, between our conversations with Isabella, and even the way that she opens up with us. It's so important to me that our child, especially as a preteen, especially in the age growing up today, is able to feel comfortable communicating with us. It's important to know that it's a part of a series. So there is an addition for how to talk to little kids and also teens. And it turned something that was awkward and uncomfortable into something that was easy and honestly rewarding.
And beautiful. I think just hearing the situation, how natural it was and how she got to ask her questions and you were there to kind of put her at ease and vice versa. It was really reassuring to know that you guys were able to have that.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in the book that we talked about in this video, check out the link in the description below.
See you soon.